Okay. Are we? Yeah, but it did it last time
I
we were
know, I
on, so
know.
we're going to assume we are. We'll find out later. We're having a little bit of drama with this, but look, I think this is working. Look, there's a couple of things I want to talk about, and because it's sort of grown a bit, I probably won't get through all of it in one presentation, and we'll come back. I'm going to put an article up. Well, it's done, but we'll put it up in a couple of days when we've got the chance. I first of all want to talk about our something new we're doing, and I'm going to speak about in more details how I got to this sort of state of affairs. But very briefly, the rocks we have, it was an agreement made with the Ramanjeri via Kano and a whole group of elders there for over a decade. The rocks will be set up there. The article I've written goes into great detail as to what has happened over that period of time, where twice we've had them basically ready to be set up. On the first occasion, the first shipment of rocks was sent and left at Kangaroo Island, Carter, and then soon after the island was taken off them, and they're still down there. And then after that, further on in the piece, quite recently, another 5 shipments were taken down, where about 150 rocks joined the other rocks. And the deal was from the very beginning that we made an agreement, Ross and myself, for a lot of good reasons, which are in the article and that'll be up in a couple of days, that it would stay on Ramangeri Land, these rocks, and the reasons for that I've gone into before, but specifically why it was with Kano, that's a long and involved process, but it was agreed to. And twice we've tried to do this, and twice it's been thwarted. Now, very simply, we were of the opinion by now we had another place the second time around, and it would have been done by now. We would have had them in formation. It would have been fixed up. I've been working with a committee from the Ramanjeri, made of original people and some non-original people, for the last 2 years, meeting virtually monthly for the last 2 years, just getting this all organised, and then it fell apart. And what basically happened was the place that we had promised and we were given it, and it had a building completely there, we had toilets set up, kitchen facilities, all that sort of stuff, and a large outdoor area. The place had been landscaped, another building being placed in there for displays, and they were going to be for the rocks, and we were going to put the rocks in formation and have them out each day for people to sit inside. About 3 months out, and again, a couple of days from now, when you read the full article, you find out exactly what happened. That was taken away. The gentleman who made that offer to us, he was then put in jail and still is to this day, and we're not even sure he's been charged, and that's been 6 months, and all activities he was involved in have been told to the person who's looking after the land now it must not continue, which means our nearly what we thought was done and dusted place for storing the rocks, again on Ramangeri country, it's been stolen for a second time. And here we are 9 months out from the change, and the rocks are not in formation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what then happened was that, I'm hoping this is working, we'll find out. What then happened was that recently a lady by the name of Bronnie contacted me and asked me if I'd come and do a ceremony for some kids who were setting up a school and the parents and welcome to the country. And I said, well, I can't do that. I can't welcome the country. This is not my country. I'm original, but this is not where my people come from. I've got a pretty good idea where they come from, but that's not important right now because my tribe's the rocks. I don't have another group. But I do have a second group, and that's the Ramangeri. As I said before, this lady asked if we do that, and I said I can't, but what I can do is I can give you children ceremony, but not the adults. And they were happy with that. So I took about 30 rocks, maybe 35 rocks from the ones I've got left over, because most are in Adelaide right now, waiting and waiting and waiting. And I took them along and explained to the kids very briefly what I was trying to do, but I had no idea if it would work because I've done this with adults many times. I know it works. We had no idea if this was going to work, so it was all a mystery to me. And I told the parents that I'm not sure what's going to happen. It may well be nothing, but it did work, and it worked in a way that moved me in a way I'd never moved before by the adults who were doing this. There were things these kids did that were just so obviously rock inspired for all of them. And the two that come to mind was the first part where I had 11 kids, and I said, well, look, you each got 5 minutes because that's all you can have. 5 for children, 10 for adults, and that's a rule. And I'll talk about why later on. And I said, you've got 5 minutes inside, you've got to approach the right way, you've got to be smoked. I put some stuff on their foreheads, some charcoal that came from a Mumawee ceremony that Carnell held. I did all that, and I told them when you go there, just sit there for 5 minutes, keep quiet, and let it happen. And I had no idea what was going to happen. Anyway, the kids sat there, and after the first kid had gone through and the second one was going through, they were sitting there and said, look, go and play. I'm thinking, I can't have 11 kids from the ages of 11 to 6 sitting there with no instructions, nothing to do, nothing to play with, nothing to write, and just sit there quietly. That won't happen. That'll end up, that's a 101 for teaching. If you give the kids nothing to do for an hour and get them to sit in one spot, you have a problem. That's just a given. So I sort of told them to go off and play, and a few did. Anyway, this next kid was doing it, and by the time the second kid had finished, everyone had come back bar 2 kids. Anyway, we did 2 more, and it was weird. It was making me sort of feel a little bit uneasy, because every time we did it, when the other kids were waiting, they just sat quietly, whispered to each other, didn't nudge, didn't push, didn't run, didn't do a thing. And I remember in about the 4th or 5th kid, I actually recommended they go and play, because I was concerned. This is not how it works with children. I'm a teacher. I've been in high school and primary school. I've been in principal in primary school, and I've been in the executive in high school. Trust me, you don't leave the kids for an hour with nothing to do and expect nothing. You'll get something and you won't want it. And they just said, we're fine. I thought, okay. And then what happened straight after is the other 2 kids that were playing came and sat. And here's the trick. An hour and a quarter in, the last kid went in, and he was 6. He was the youngest, and he just waited all that time. And that threw me a bit. And there were 2 other things that actually had an impact on me. And one was the fact I told the parents and the kids, I don't want to know their dreaming stories. I don't want to know what happened between you and the rocks, because it's not my business. Well, I could hear what the kids were saying, and I knew they got something out of it, which was quite encouraging. Then a parent came up and said, I want to tell you what happened to my son. And I said, oh no, I don't want to hear this. She said, yes you do, and I'm going to tell you anyway. So I let that go, and she told me what took place. He was the first boy that went in, and the oldest. That's why I put him in first. And I did tell him when he went in, and said, in the old ways, when original kids were around, old kids like you would be looking after the young kids and make sure they didn't get into strife. I said, you've got to become a mediator, an interlocutor, to make sure that things never fall out of control. And he said, does that mean I'm the boss? I said, no, you're not the boss of anyone. Everyone's the boss of themselves. But you are the one to make sure that if they do something that might go wrong, you step in. That's what older kids do. He took that on board. Then he sat inside for 5 minutes, and then after that he left, and his mother told me what happened next. He went down to the creek, which is down by where this place is, and they've got a beautiful building, and the kids are really nice kids. And he wept. He really wept. It was a cleansing process. And she told me after that he was downloaded. And the things he was told and the things that he was given have changed his life forever. And I remember looking at him in the eyes after the mother said that. And I looked in the eyes and I said, that wasn't the boy that went in. And I'm thinking, a young man has come out. Something happened during those 5 minutes. And then what was really interesting was his brother. His brother came up before when he was going in and said, look, I want to apologise. I said, what for? He said, well, when I go in there, I'm going to wriggle. I said, what makes you think that? Because the teachers told me I always do it. And he was really conscious of the fact that he had to keep perfectly still. I said, well, this time around you're not going with teacher, you're going with someone different. We'll just see what happens, eh? He said, oh, well, I'll wriggle. I don't mean anything by it. I said, no, don't worry, just go in. He went in for 5 minutes, and during those 5 minutes he didn't move. When he came out, I patted him on the back and I said, you didn't wriggle. And he was really proud of himself. He said, no, I didn't. I said, that's because you were listening to a different teacher. And I said, that one's much different than the others. He said, yeah, I know. And that was interesting. That was the brother of the young boy that went down to the creek to cry. Now, after that, I've done this with hundreds of adults, these ceremonies. The Rocks, by the way, insisted on that. I never took it on the road or did anything until they insisted that happen. We did it down in Byron. We did it we've done it a few places. And I just keep out of it. I just let it happen. This was different because I got involved in this one to an extent. And what happened was, there I was sitting there when I came home for the next few days, thinking about that and thinking about the power of these rocks and the fact that we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to be able to put them up. And that became a real issue. And that, I think 2 nights in, as I was going to bed, I was told by the rocks, the rings, the skulls, everything. They wanted us to start getting the public to go near these rocks. And as I said, you can read more about what led to this and why. And what I did then was I made contact with the elders. I told them what I wanted to do. And I did start mentioning in our last online conference. And I sort of started doing that because I was going to approach them. And I spoke to them last Monday about this. We have weekly meetings about what they're doing to resolve that problem. That's coming up. I told them what I wanted to do and they were fully behind it. Christine, Alcano's wife, made it very clear this is what she wants to happen. So primarily what happened was I went to bed that night and I took to bed with me a ring, a rock, and a piece of skull. And I said, if you want me to do this, I don't know what's going to happen. What do you want? What can I do? Anyway, in the morning when I woke up, they told me, and that was the deal. I said, tell me when I'm asleep and I'll do it. And I was told what I wanted to do and I didn't want to do it. I told Evan, he didn't want to do it. But the rocks and the rings and the skulls and all those artifacts told me they did want to do it. And I've learnt one other thing. When they speak, when they give an ultimatum, it's non-negotiable. So ladies and gentlemen, what came out of this, and this has been approved by the Council of Aramenjeri Elders that are working on this with the whole display, they've agreed to this. What we're going to do over the next 9 months is we're going to put them on. Now we tried to put them down in Kangaroo Island, it was taken off the Aramenjeri. We tried to put them on 3 acres of land that overlooked the ocean, 400 metres away. That was taken off by the government, another government group, and this one time they can't because we're going to hold monthly. We're only doing it once a month, that's it, and we're doing them at our place. It's in the rainforest, and we own it, it's freehold, so no one can stop us. We're doing this different. And what we're doing is primarily we're going to put on a 3.5-hour presentation. And what we've decided to do, we'll do once a month. But the numbers have to be small. And we can only do 2 presentations a day. It just has to be done that way. This is not to be a lecture. It's to be a group that are working together in ceremony. The people who come will have to agree to ceremony before they sit between the rocks, and they'll be given 10 minutes away from the rest of the group on their own with that rock. With the rocks, and I'll put them in a sacred formation. And what's going to happen is we're going to take 8 people in the morning on Saturday, 8 people in the afternoon, for 3.5 hours both times. It goes from I think 9 to 12:30 and then from 1 to 4:30. And what we'll do is we'll ask each person, and we're only making the groups 8. I can't make them larger than that, or it becomes a lecture. It's got to be small. If you're going to do a ceremony like that, that's the full number you can have, and we can only do it twice a day. So we're limited to 16 people on each day, 32 on the 2 days, and that's all. What will happen is you can bring along with you a glove, but it must be natural material. It must be cotton, it must be wool, it must be leather, it must be something that's natural, silk, I don't care. But it can't be rayon and polyester or anything like that, because the rock will not appreciate that at all. And you'll get to hold the rocks for a while, and we'll do a little talk about the rocks for maybe 10, 20, 30 minutes. And then what will happen is we'll go inside and we'll start a presentation. To begin with, it'll be about a lot of different things. We'll finish with the rings in Atlantis, because Leah's going to be involved in this too, and she's going to do a fair bit of talking about Atlantis. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a talk about the rings from Atlantis and how that goes together with her story. Now that part you'll probably all be with us, but in the middle section, what we're going to do is we'll have 8 people with us. One will go out and do ceremony. They'll miss 10 minutes of the talk, but they'll pick it up, and there's time to catch up, and I'll explain how that works later if you missed something you really wanted to hear. And then what takes place is after they've done their ceremony, they come back in while we're still talking, and another person goes out, and all 8 people will spend 10 minutes inside. Now why 10 minutes? Because that's what the rings told me. And I'll give you an example of how that happens. A lady by the name of Deborah, who's an original singer, is trying to make up an album about the rocks. And I've heard the first song, and it's got a lot of promise. Great lyrics, good music. Recorded in the bedroom on a small tape. I mean, that stuff aside, it's got potential. But what was happening is I put them in formation for her about 3-4 weeks ago. And I knew it was 10 minutes. And I went away to leave her because I don't want to interrupt people while they're doing this. They've got to be on their own. And I was coming back to call her out, and as I did, my wife grabbed me and asked me a couple of questions, and that held me up for 15 seconds. And I walked out to the door, and as I did that, I could see her walking out of the rocks. And before I said, oh, it's time to come out, she said, the rocks just told me to get out. Been final till now, but then they told me to get out, and that was exactly 10 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the number. That's what'll take place. We'll have people coming in and out for a while. In the last hour or so, we'll be talking about the skulls, we'll be talking about the standing stones, a few things like that, and it'll be in a different situation. We will be talking about, people have the opportunity throughout this discussion to ask questions, but make sure it's a question, not a statement of what you believe, but a quick question has a quick answer so we can go back on board. I want this to be more like a classroom than a lecture, and that's why I want the numbers to be so small, so it's like a tutorial to an extent. So we're offering 3.5 hour sessions, and what happens is the last half hour of each session is open just to questions and answers about anything that they've heard or maybe something they missed, and questions about other stuff that fits with that, and anything else they want to ask. It's just free and open. And that 3.5 hours is what we're offering. Now we're doing that on the Saturday and Sunday, and I think it's the last day in this month and the first day in the next month when the Saturday and Sunday fall. Now, the trick with this is, because the numbers are small and we can only do it twice a day and we're only doing it once each month, and because Leah's got to fly up from Melbourne, there's a bit of a cost involved in this one. We normally keep it really cheap, but on this occasion, bearing in mind both Leah and Evan, since the last 2 years, haven't had a job because they lost their job because of what they didn't do, and I don't go past that. I don't want to talk about it. I've got to look after them. So what we're doing is this: we're asking people to play $150 for that 3.5 hours, which is for each of us, because there's 3 of us there. From you, it's $14 per hour for you to pay for us. And over the 3 hours, 3.5 hours, that works out to be that each of us get that per. You're paying that to each of us for the 42 divided by 3. That's what we're getting for what we're giving you, and this will be a one-off, because another part of the guarantee is of that. And by the way, if you're a subscriber or want to become one, you get 20% off. And that then becomes, the subscriber is $15 per month. You actually get 2 months free, because what happens is it goes down to 120. Our subscribers get 20% off, and they get things off because that's part of the deal of being one. So if you want to do that, you can, because you also get 40% off each of our online conferences. So it's not a bad deal. You save a lot of money out of it. For those people who are worried that they're spending too much on this, there's a cheaper way to do it. You can get all of this, and it cuts everything back. But what we guarantee is this: that if you are ready and you are on the right track, what I would call the old way teachings, which is the Hopi, what they speak about, if you're on that track, you will get something from this, and it will be life-changing. Now, how can I say that? Because hundreds have done it, children included, and if their heart and soul is in the right place, they always get a reaction. And so confident are we about this, that of that $150 for 3.5 hours, if that 10 minutes you get nothing whatsoever, you come and tell us and we'll give you $50 back, 1/3 of the whole thing. And if you want to lie to us about it, you can, but that would be bad karma. But if it's true, then we're okay with that. And I can tell you also that when you're sitting there, heaven will be watching from a distance outside, not to get in the way, but to make sure that you're comfortable there. And there are clues that are given, and some people have not been welcomed because there's something that they haven't come to grips with. There's an issue. They might feel they're on the path, but they're not. They're not looking for people who aren't ready. They're only looking for people who are ready. And they want to give them, I don't know what, but I know it'll be a lot, and I'll know it'll change people a lot, and I know that they'll become better people because of it. They want to give this out, and the only way we can do it is this way. Now, I can tell you, Evan and I and my wife weren't keen on this. The idea of people coming up to our place, and we live in a rainforest. It's a proper rainforest here up in the northern rivers near Byron Bay. And by the way, one of the deals, I'm going to make this clear, if you want to come and you're in Australia, and by the way, we will be filming this, not straight away, but further on for people overseas, and they'll do the full presentation that we give the others, and they will also get 10 minutes with a camera sitting inside the ring. So it's sort of like a second best way of doing things. It's not the same as being with the rocks, putting them in your gloved hands and then sitting between them for 10 minutes. And by the way, I can make the point too, you cannot come back on the second day and say, can I do it again? Because the rocks have made it clear to me that this is exactly what we're going to do at Adelaide, wherever we end up setting it up. People need a 2-day break before they can come back. That's just not good. It's too difficult. There's too much for your soul to take in, and it will overwhelm you. You'll come out of this becoming lesser. You can do 10 minutes is enough. You can't repeat it the next day. So that's what we're offering. It's online on our shop at the moment. It went up yesterday afternoon. And already, I think around about 1/3 of the tickets for the first month have been booked out. So I know it's going to be popular because this will be a combination of the rings, the rocks will be the main contributors, the alien skulls, the artifacts from carry-on, which include an object which is 25% not from this planet. We don't know what the metal is. All of these will be in formation together because this is not just an original ceremony, this is a global ceremony. And those other objects only strengthen it. We'll have rings from Lemuria. Of course, the Atlantean rings will not be there, and we'll talk about why, but they can't be. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're offering. And what we are also doing is we're putting up a list of accommodation because, yes, accommodation up in our area with all the floods is bad at the moment. We've got the school holidays coming up. It's still bad, but after that, because we're not putting it on then, we're putting it after the school holidays, there is accommodation available. And of course, we live in the only part of this region, along with Bangalore, where it just, even though we had, I think, 420 mils in one night, it just doesn't flood here. We're 140 metres above sea level here, and we're only about 5 or 6 k's off the coast, so it doesn't flood here, so it will be on. And in our area and around there, the area we're talking about, Bangalore, Byron Bay, Ballina got flooded, but not like the one in Lismore. Nothing like that. It was just a seep. The one in Lismore was a torrent, and they've had 2 there. There will be accommodation available, so that's okay. And we'll put up a list of places too. And because we're only asking for 16 on the first day and 16 on the second, 32, it's not a large influx of people. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. And in a day or two, there'll be an article up that explains all of the details of how we tried twice to put it up and we were blocked. So you understand we did this, and by the way, remember this, unanimous agreement within the elders. They have said this is what they want. They understand why, because these objects want to have their say in the change and they want to be part of the change. And at the moment, we've been blocked. Now, I can't do it each week. Some people have said, can you do it? No, we just can't do it. It does take a lot out of us when we're working with these objects, and we're going to be exhausted after 1 month, one presentation, and Leah lives in Melbourne. We can only do it once a month. We have to do it properly, and for that to happen, we're doing ceremony. I can't do ceremony week after week after week like that. It's got to be done properly, old way. It can only be done once a month. And as I said, if you're a subscriber, it's $120. If you're not, it's $150, but it's cheap either way, because honestly, you will never be in the presence this close of so many sacred objects. And there's no other place like this in this country. And now, when you do buy a ticket, you will not get our address straight away. It's not up. We live in the Northern Rivers. We live near Lennox. We're near the coast. We're near Byron. Yes, we're near all those things, but that's as much as you know. You will get the address of where we live. And then what I'm going to say to you very simply is you keep that to yourself, please, and whoever's going with you. I don't want it shared. This is an invitee only, and I don't want other people coming here. I want this control, because we wouldn't have done it, except they insisted. And of course now the elders have said, yeah, we want this done. We're locked into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be part of that, you can. It's a one-off, and you'll either get the morning or the afternoon of the first or the second day. And because we have, my wife is an artist, we have a massive studio that can take 40 people. We're only taking 8, so we can spread you around if you're concerned about COVID. Plenty of windows and doors. It's open, and we live in the rainforest. It's all around us. Therefore, you're getting the cleanest air you've ever breathed anywhere. So that's not a problem there. We're fine with that. We make no checks on what you have or haven't done medically because we're not doing that. We're doing spiritually. That's the first part, ladies and gentlemen. The second part is, and I've got to add this because it relates to this part, we've got an online conference coming up, all original this time, and we're basically looking at the prophecy, the Hopi prophecy, and I've taken 3 sections out of it and found people to talk about those sections. The first one, it talks in the Hopi, they talk about the fact you've got to find the old way, the old teachings. So Donnie, who is an old way person from a long way back, has been working as a sites officer for National Parks and Wildlife for decades, knows all the sacred places around here, has spoken overseas, is a great storyteller. He was a perfect fit to give you a general idea of what the old way teachings are. Talking about the old way teachings, the sacred sites, what they mean, why they're important, all that sort of stuff, from someone who's still on site doing it now, I thought would be a perfect fit. So he's come along and has agreed to talk about that. Then the Hopi talk about the signs. There will be miraculous signs, and they speak about them being in the clouds. I haven't got a spelling. I think it's Ganyara. I cannot remember. I can't say her last 2 names, and I want to do it properly. My apologies for that. Is a young lady. She's an original woman, of course, who sent us some pictures of the sky and the formation of the clouds. I know she put it up on YouTube, and thousands saw it and were all amazed by it because it ain't natural. The thing was, but it was just put up. You didn't get the story of the person who witnessed it and how they felt and how the animals felt and the atmosphere and what the animals weren't doing and all the things that led up to it, and the fact that another original person also saw it and they were the only 2 that did, and you had to be underneath it to see it. It is the most amazing set of photographs taken of up there. Yeah, I know we've got UFOs and we've got amazing lights, but this ain't like any of that. And when we saw that, we said, man, we've got to put that up, because we wanted to do the Hopi prophecies, and they're all about the 2 brothers showing themselves in the plaza and being revealed in the sky, and they say, look up into the clouds and you'll see things that are happening. Well, this lady will talk about old way things from the woman's point of view, because if I just have the man talking about old way stuff and not the woman, it's not balanced. So we had to get that right. But on top of that, she's going to show you one of those Hopi signs, and if you don't believe in that one, you won't believe in anything. It's beyond belief. So we brought that in. That's the second part of the equation. And of course, we're going to pick up. Last time we did an overview of archaeology. No woo-woo stuff, as some people are whinging we're doing, in Australia that proved the Egyptians were here. Now, because the Hopi talk about the fact that they're the sky heroes that we call sky heroes, that are coming from the sky, and there are aliens involved in this, and they're from the Pleiades. This one is archaeology that proves the Pleiadians were in Australia. Because I wanted to prove that part of the Hopi prophecy, that the blue brothers are coming. Blue being Pleiades, they're coming. They are coming through the sky towards us. Well, we wanted to do that. And I believe the 2 articles we've put up, one's gone up and the second one I'm writing right now, are the best 2 articles that have been written on archaeology in Australia, with the true archaeology given up. We've got, I think, 11 pieces of archaeology and I think 3 sites, 14 pieces of evidence in Australia that is not stick, stone, bone and open fireplace technology, and nor is it any form of pre-cook or post-cook technology either. Some of these things are ridiculous. I mean, some have been identified. We've got them chemically analysed. And we've got artefacts that have been found in Australia that have content that is not on the periodic table, doesn't exist. Got all sorts of stuff there, and we're going to talk about that. And on top of that, that was going to be our only focus until things started to develop with this other story. And I told you about the fact that for the next 9 months, up until December, we're not going past that, the rocks will be on display once a month only, then they're hidden. Okay, and the ones in Adelaide, 2/3 already down there. I'm not using them. I'm using these ones here, and there's enough left behind, don't worry. That that will go on until then, and then by then I'm hoping it'll be on country in Ramangeri country. And for that to happen, I have invited 3 members of the committee of about 12 or 13, and of course a majority original, but there's non-original because this is Wiritan, blackfella, whitefella dreaming, and they're going to come on, and they're going to explain what they're trying to do, their plans for the future, and hopefully get an interest from you guys in that. And I figured, because I got involved in this, I mean, when this our second one fell apart at the finishing post when we're nearly ready to move in, I sort of thought, oh, that's it then, it's done. And then Christine got in contact and said, I want you to get involved in this online thing we're doing. I thought, I didn't know what it was about. And I've got to be honest, in the first couple I barely spoke because I didn't know what they were doing. I wasn't sure. And then I found out what they were doing. And I thought, well, okay. I found out myself. And it was their idea. They kept doing it. They come up with this and they've arranged it. And it's got a lot to do with the computer, so you can be damn sure I'm not doing it. And I thought it's better they talk about it, not me. So what's happened is I'm just going to ask a couple of general questions, and there'll be 3 of them there. You've got Umbalara, who is Kano's auntie and was chosen by Kano to be one of the ones that carries on his work. Kano's wife. Well, they're the 2 most important people I can get. And the third one, just to make sure we didn't have all women, we've got to get a balance every time, we've got Daryl McElroy, who's also a Ramangeri person by blood and by connection, but is also the local DJ in Byron Bay for Byron Bay FM, and he runs the Aboriginal show called Wiritan. So those 3 are going to talk about what they're doing. They're not on our promo. We haven't got them up because this only just came about, so I had to mention that now. So ladies and gentlemen, I've spoken for far too long. I knew this was going to take longer. What I am going to say is come and join us on our online conference, or maybe if you wanted to do that and also come along to the other workshop, you'd be just as well advised to just join up and become a subscriber, save $30 on the $150, and save 40% on every time you watch a conference, and it pays very quickly. Because instead of $27 or $26, it's $15 for each one. Instead of $150, it's $120. And believe me, Leah and Evan need it. I'm hanging in there. I'm above water. I can manage either way, but they can't. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a very good online conference coming up. Lots of compelling archaeology, great original speakers. We've got 5, 6 of them coming up to talk to you from different points of view. Remember last time round we had a speaker who came on that was outrageously good, and everyone said how brilliant he was. You can still watch that one with Peter. It's still there. And of course the next one up, that's all loaded up at the moment now. And I'm hoping and praying this worked. All right, I don't even know how to turn this off. So I'm going to, Evan, are you here? Can you turn it off? Because we're stuck again. Look, there's no turn it off there.